Welcome back to Filmfest Bremen studio. I'm Ilona, I'm the Artistic Director of Filmfest Bremen, and it's my honor to have a director of the innovation category here with the film Montegelato. It's a VR project, and I'm talking about this project right now with Davide Rapp. Hi, Davide.
Hi, Ilona, nice to meet you, and hello to everyone.
Thanks for joining us today. Montegelato is, as I said before, is a VR project, and it's also a little bit for me a travel through time and space. It takes place at a very unique scene, the Montegelato waterfalls. I think they're near Rome, if I'm correct. And but the scenes we see in this project are a compilation of very different things. Maybe you can lead us a little bit through the different aspects of what we are experiencing when we are watching your work.
Yeah, sure, with pleasure. So Montegelato waterfalls are located 50 kilometers from Rome. And for some reason, back in 1950, Roberto Rossellini decided to film a movie in front of them. And in the next 70 years, many other directors decided to produce more than 180 different film or TV series or commercial. So I noticed this peculiar location, a recurrent location in the history of Italian cinema. A couple of years ago, I was watching an old spaghetti western movie, and then I decided to look for all the movies set there. It was a long journey. It took me 5 years to find all the different movies because most of them are quite rare. It's quite difficult to find even a videotape of a movie. Some of them are on a Super 8 film, so it was quite complicated to be done. Then eventually, when I collected all this material, somehow I wasn't able to do anything. Sometimes it happens when you are looking for something, you have an idea. I wanted to create a sort of montage film because most of my previous work are related with the idea of combining movies source coming from different sources from different movies. But then I had the chance to watch a couple of 360-degree movies. And so I said, maybe this particular media could be the tool that can help me in order to produce what I had in mind. And so I spent the next 6 to 7 months trying to, create this sort of collage of different movies. And yes, with the idea of a half an hour long movie in which the viewer can gradually discover the landscape of the waterfalls. This is basically the idea behind the film.
And I also really like how sometimes these different images merge into each other almost. You have children playing in the water at the waterfall, and then you have scenes of fights or war, and you have obviously a love, problems and also love scenes taking place there. And all of this happens at the same setting, but obviously in very different contexts. But by the way it's compiled, all of these things talk to each other or kind of blend into each other. So there is probably a lot of thought that went into it. You said you watched that many films and it took so many time to compile, but also the sequence in which we watch these episodes probably has a lot of thought behind it.
Yeah, because, you can imagine that when you collect all these huge amount of videos in a period of 5 years, you have more material than the material that you will actually able to use in your final film, of course. So, I had different criteria. Of course, the selection of the clips, most of them were related to their position according to the landscape of the waterfalls, because the first goal of the whole film was to recreate the landscape. But of course, I also love to collect clips related to specific peculiar topics Like, for example, there is a short sequence in which you have different characters calling someone else. So there is a collection of names, one after the other. Or, for example, you can see different people diving into the waterfalls. Of course, it's both a work about movie cliche and similar actions according to different situations and different stories, and as well as a film about a landscape. The important thing to be said, that it's something that maybe the viewer couldn't believe, is the fact that I never visited the waterfall.
I was going to ask you this, obviously, like if that has some like personal meaning for you, this location, or if you've been there, and like the final shots as well, these are kind of just a waterfall. There is no action playing place. So I was kind of wondering if you shot any original material at all about the landscape, the scenery there, but you never actually went there.
No, I never went there because the we can say the crazy exercise to be done was the trying to recreate a landscape only watching movies. Mm-hmm. It could be considered a nice an interesting exercise to be done. And so we developed the collage, putting all the clips one after the other. Then, because of the pandemic, I wasn't able to reach the actual place, because finally I wanted to visit it in order to see if the collage was more or less like looking like the real place. So I wasn't able to go there. I asked to someone else to film the location. So at the end of the movie, the viewer, as a sort of final gift, if you took the time to watch the movie, in the end, you finally discover how the waterfall looked like for real. And that is quite nice, because you understand that sometimes the camera can completely change the proportion and how a place look like according to the camera. So I asked to someone else to film the waterfalls, and when they sent me back the footage, the unbelievable thing for me was that the collage and the video were more or less matching without any particular problem. So the exercise was well done, I would say. And well, that's it. So I never visited before, and I never visited yet. So I would like to go there. Of course, the people from there that knew about my film invited me, because they are curious to know me, because it's a sort of also tribute to a place. I'm curious, but didn't have the chance to do it yet.
Yes, this is also for me, the question was if it's like a fascination with this particular place, or just any place that plays such a central role in the moving images of a country's tradition. This seems to be a very popular place to shoot certain scenes. As you can see in the compilation, there is so many different films taking place at this waterfall setting. So, but also any place you visited, it's kind of interesting that after watching Montegelato, you get this, like you walk somewhere and you imagine how many people have walked there, what drama or what event has taken place at this specific spot. So it kind of gives a meaning to places, like these layers of history and all of these things that are usually you don't notice when you're standing someplace. And especially very like scenic places that get photographed a lot or visited a lot, but they still hold all this personal meaning to people, and are embedded in the culture, or like the cultural conscience in a very specific way. So I think your movie really opens the eyes and the mind to this kind of like realization. So I enjoyed this very much.
Yeah, but yeah, the idea was to, of course, try to tell a story using material coming from different movies. But as soon as I was digging in the material, I learned a lot about the history of Italian cinema in terms of production. For example, I don't know if you have noticed this, but for example, there are a couple of scenes coming from very different kind of movies that actually were filmed a couple of months one after the other. So it happened that, for example, one production decided to set up a wooden bridge in front of the waterfalls, and so the next crew found that bridge, and probably it was cheaper to maintain it rather than remove it, and so they decided to include that specific props into the film that they were going to film. So for me, this was quite funny. And apparently, I also asked to one of the directors that had the chance to film there in the 70s. Apparently, it happened that while a crew was filming a movie, the next one was already waiting for their turn. So if you think about it, it was a crazy situation, no? And so from this point of view, this gave me the inspiration in order to let the clip appear, but also stay there with this kind of opacity. So every time a new film appears, when the clip ends, it's still there with a different opacity. And so as soon as the video goes on, you can still see what you have seen before. And so you have different characters like, I don't know, Hercules or a cowboy or a woman standing all together in front of the same. So it's a sort of time travel in the same place.
Yeah, this is exactly it. Like you travel through time and through these different settings, and you're still at the very same base where you're starting from. And I really liked also, like I said before, the final shot where you can actually see the waterfall and get like a clear image of it beforehand. It's so much part of what's taking place in the action of the specific films. And also like the editing, that sometimes it's almost like call and response between the dialogue, or like, you know, that to match, it must be such a lot of work. So I was going to ask you, are you like in, when you're not creating this kind of like montage films, are you like a movie historian or a researcher? Because it takes so much patience to make a film like this. So you must have some kind of like scientific background, I would assume.
Actually, I used to be an architect. My previous professional life was related to architecture. I've been working as an architect for 7-8 years, but since 2014, I completely changed my professional life, and I've been working as a video artist or a video maker. But I have to say that probably, for example, as an architect, I always watch movie considering the backdrop of the scene, or I'm interested in the space, in the buildings in which each story takes place. So I think that in Montegelato, but in many other videos that I did in the past, this specific relation between cinema and architecture, cinema and landscape, cinema and the world as it is. But I have to say that I also had, well, it's not important now, but I had a PhD in interior design. So maybe you know, when you do a PhD research, you somehow learn how to research. And so I try to use the same experience to do this one. But it's the way I usually look at things. I try to dig as deep as I can, the more that I can, and trying to find the more information that you can.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this, like a love for detail, and also that makes a lot of sense with the architecture, because I felt like it's a very spatial film, in that also with the VR you put someone like actually in the middle of this place to experience it in a very unique way. So for me, that relationship between the viewer and the space, that was very central to the project. So I think coming from the architecture point of view, it does make sense to see landscape landscapes in a very similar way, like to experience a space. So I'm very glad we have this project and we are featuring it at the Kunsthalle. We are going to have, for the first time ever at Filmfest Bremen, an exhibition which is exclusively for media and VR projects and also installation projects that expand, not just being on the screen, but expand into the real world and the room, and they work with different settings in the museum. We're going to have our little exhibition in the basement of the Kunsthalle, which is like the biggest art museum here in Bremen. So it's going to be really special to have an exhibition for the first time and to have Montegelato be part of this. So
I'm glad you decided to include my film.
So yes, it's like with the VR projects, you always have to do them justice. So, and you have to experience them individually. So it's quite different from other festival films, where the sort of like idea is to watch it with as many people together as possible in one screening room. This is a very unique and very personal experience because only one person at a time can be in this space and experience the film. But it's going to be screened for Friday, Saturday and Sunday of Filmfest during the opening hours of the museum. So lots of people will have the chance to step inside Montegelato waterfalls and experience the scenery and the history of the place. So I am very much looking forward to the reactions to this, and thank you for joining us because this gives a nice backdrop as well. If people after watching the VR movie want to know more, there will be something on our website to give them a bit more of a background into how this was made and why it was made. And yeah, thank you very much for being part of this year's competition and festival.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
So thank you for joining me, and like I said in the beginning, Montegelato will feature in the innovation and experimental category this year.